The research team landed on Charon's icy surface under the dim glow of Pluto in the distance. 3 figures in sealed environmental suits moved slowly through the crunching frost, their lights cutting through the cold silence. A small research ship hovered above them in stationary orbit, its automated systems quietly scanning the Kuiper Belt for any remaining signs of ancient civilizations. Doctor, dear Doctor, Zixtal, first contact specialist of the Alexian Coalition, stood motionless, staring at the jagged crystalline surface before him. Etched into the exposed rock was a message, ancient, worn by time, yet still legible. It wasn't the first one they'd found. "You have got to be kidding me," Zix muttered, his mandibles clicking in frustration. "17th one so far," murmured lead researcher Critic, her bioluminescent patches pulsing with excitement as she captured high-res scans of the alien inscription. "All say basically the same thing." Junior researcher Muko's tentacles curled tightly around her datapad as she scrolled through their cataloged entries. "Warning signs," she said, shaking her head. "Over and over again. Don't go to Earth. Don't wake the humans. Don't even breathe in their direction." "I like the one on Mars," Critic added. Something like, "Look, we're not joking. Those things are terrifying when they wake up cranky." The 3 of them stood silently, huddled in the sterile whiteness of Charon, letting the reality of the message settle in. These warnings weren't from a single source. They came from dozens of distinct civilizations, some over 1,000,000 years old, others more recent by galactic standards. The one thing they all had in common was a very clear directive: stay away from the 3rd planet. Zix paced back and forth, each step leaving a precise hexagonal imprint in the frost. "Let me get this straight," he said, motioning with 2 of his upper arms. "We found evidence of at least 23 advanced species. Most were capable of interstellar travel. Several were confirmed Type II or even Type II civilizations. And yet, they all walked away from Earth," Mugo finished. "Because of humans," Zix snapped. "Humans who've only had electronics for what, less than 200 standard years, who haven't even gotten beyond their own moon." "Infants," Critic agreed. "Then what the hell makes them so threatening?" Zix asked, more to the frozen air than to his companions. Muko tentatively brought up a passage they'd recovered from the Venus archive. One line stood out: "They are mostly harmless while dormant." "Mostly harmless," Zix repeated, deadpan, followed by 17 exclamation marks. Muko said, scrolling down, "And then this. But holy quantum fluctuations, you do not want to see them when they're properly motivated." Critic chimed in, her voice slightly amused. "Linguistic analysis suggests the author was under severe mental duress while carving that." A long silence followed. Zix's body language, normally so composed, was visibly strained. The implications were too bizarre. Why would so many civilizations, advanced enough to manipulate stars and bend space-time, retreat from a planet that had barely mastered combustion engines just a century ago? "And yet here we are," Zix said eventually, "standing on a frozen moon, preparing to completely ignore those warnings. Because we're curious," Critic said with a shrug. "And because the Council of Sciences signed off on it. Full approval. They're practically drooling over the idea of first contact." "Of course they are," Zix said bitterly. "Why, think about the fact that the last 17 races who found Earth decided to leave a warning instead of starting a conversation." There was a brief moment of stillness. Muko's chromatophore shifted uncertainly as she asked, "So, we're really gonna wake them up, aren't we?" "Oh, absolutely," Critic said, a little too cheerfully. Back at the ship, as the team suited up and powered on the engines for their earthbound journey, Muko paused. She'd noticed something odd while reviewing the carvings. She zoomed in on a faint line of text just beneath the latest warning. The script was different, smaller, almost sarcastic in tone. "Guys," she said, her voice rising slightly, "I found something else. Look at this." She projected the translation onto the ship's main display. "P.S. If you're dumb enough to ignore this warning, at least don't mention their coffee supply is limited. We lost 3 star systems that way. Zix let out a slow breath. Coffee. I believe it's a beverage, Muko replied. I thought humans weren't even spacefaring yet, Critic said. How do they have this kind of reputation? They don't, Zix said. Not officially. But clearly, something about them, something fundamental, spooked a whole lot of advanced beings. It wasn't just the warnings. It was the way they were written, not as imperial declarations, but desperate pleas. Some used crude pictograms. Others invoked scientific models of what would happen if humans reached a certain level of awareness. One referred to them as chaotic apex mammals with paradoxical compassion and persistent disregard for thermodynamic norms. Another simply said, "Do not engage." Repeat, "Do not engage." Still, the council back home didn't care. The findings had been deemed the scientific discovery of the millennium. Even rumors of humanity's volatile history only fueled the intrigue. Earth was the last truly uncontacted planet harboring intelligent life in this quadrant of the galaxy, and they weren't going to pass up the chance. As their vessel began to break orbit, drifting slowly out of Charon's gravitational pull, the icy world below faded into the darkness. 1,000 warning signals echoed in the logs, but none loud enough to cancel the mission. Zix sat silently in the observation deck, watching Earth slowly grow larger in the distance. "We're not ready for this," he muttered. "You think they're dangerous?" Muko asked softly. "I don't know what they are," he replied. "But we're not going to find peace signs and curious scientists down there. If all these ancient civilizations were scared, maybe they saw something we didn't. Or something we're about to see," Critic added. Muko nodded, her tentacles tightening slightly around the nearest rail. "I think we're going to wake something that wasn't supposed to be woken." No one responded. The hum of the ship's systems was the only sound for several long minutes. In the distance, Earth spun slowly blue, green, and alive. Below the surface of its peaceful clouds, billions of humans went about their days, entirely unaware that they were being watched, entirely unaware that they were feared. And high above, a group of alien scientists sped toward them, warnings ignored, curiosity outweighing caution. The sleeping giants were about to stir. The first contact transmission was sent with all the precision and care that could be expected from a team that had just ignored 17 galactic warnings. The ship, a streamlined silver vessel bearing the markings of the Alexian Coalition, floated just beyond the moon's orbit, safely out of visual range from Earth's surface. From this distance, the planet looked serene, lush and blue, wrapped in clouds. Peaceful, deceptively so. Dr. Zixtal watched the data stream roll in on the central console. Transmission initiated. Standard peaceful contact protocols. Broadcasting on all known frequencies. "Let's see how long it takes them to respond," said Critic, her bioluminescent patches blinking steadily. Muko hovered nearby, her tentacles coiled around the console's edge. "Probably hours," she said. "Maybe days. It's a primitive species, after all." They waited. And then the signal hit started coming in. It started with a garbled burst of audio laughter, cheering, then something like shouting, then images. Not scientific instruments or military formations, but crude cell phone videos, memes, GIFs, hashtags. "What the hell is this?" Zix muttered, leaning in. Critic zoomed in on the first batch. It looks like amateur astronomy footage. Thousands of humans aiming handheld devices at the sky. "Is this Twitter?" Muko asked. "Reddit." Their ship's translator AI chimed in, "Correct?" The majority of responses are being shared via 2 primary communication platforms known for real-time discourse and humor-based information exchanges. Most reactions appear to be celebratory. "Are they making jokes?" Zix asked, staring at a looping animation of a human in a cowboy hat yelling, "Yeehaw, space friends." "Yes," the AI replied. Approximately 63% of incoming responses are classified as humorous in nature. "Are they challenging us to combat?" Muko added, zooming in on a trending post. "What does 'come fight me' Arl mean?" In real life, the AI translated, It's a colloquial invitation to physical conflict, though often used ironically. Zix rubbed his temples with all four hands. They think this is a game. Critic nodded, her tone unreadable. Or a party. Muko frowned. There's a recurring character in their messages. A Florida man. Apparently he's done everything from fighting gators to defeating alien invaders with household objects. And there's something called copy pasta. It's like ritual storytelling, except nonsense. This is not how first contact is supposed to go, Zix said, stunned. Where's the awe? The global panic? The deep existential reckoning? Oh, that's happening too, Critic replied. Just through memes. One video shows a human sobbing about their place in the cosmos while holding a cat wearing a tinfoil hat. And what is this? Muko asked, highlighting a video that had already been viewed 11 million times. A grainy voice spoke from off-screen. Bro, aliens are real. We're so screwed. Or maybe not. Either way, I made t-shirts. Zix blinked. Did he just say, merchandising rights? Critic confirmed. Humans are selling shirts with our ship's image. One reads, first contact vibes only. Another says, it better bring tacos. Muko's chromatophores flashed pink in what might have been admiration. That was fast. Before Zix could protest further, a new message popped onto the main display. This one had an official seal. United Nations Security Council? The AI read, Global Diplomatic Body. Message incoming. Zix let out a breath. Finally, sanity. The message itself was professional, diplomatic, warm. It welcomed the Alexian Coalition to Earth and suggested an in-person meeting with world leaders at a secure location. Everything was as it should be, until the postscript. PSI, the message concluded. If you're planning any funny business, be advised, humanity has collectively watched every alien invasion movie ever made. We have contingency plans ranging from Independence Day to Mars attacks. Also, we're pretty sure we can get Jeff Goldblum on the phone. Who is Jeff Goldblum? Critic asked. An actor, the AI replied. Famous for portraying characters who defeat aliens using outdated Earth technology. Great, Zix groaned. We're being threatened with mid-20th century operating systems. Windows 95, the AI confirmed. Specifically, the bridge was silent for a moment before Muko whispered. The ancient warnings are starting to make sense. The landing ceremony was scheduled for 3 days later. The team used the time to study human customs, protocols, and social behavior. What they found only made them more concerned. They've been fighting each other for all of recorded history, Zix reported. And yet, somehow, they've advanced faster than any species we've studied. Powered flight to moon landing in just 66 years. Insane, Muko said. Terrifying, Critic corrected. And yet, they still haven't solved things like climate change or unified governance. They invented nuclear weapons before wheeled luggage, Muko noted. That says a lot. The team considered aborting the mission again, but the decision had been made. The world below was ready more than ready. As they entered Earth's atmosphere, their ship's sensors picked up thousands of small craft approaching the landing zone. Are those military units? Zix asked. No, Critic said slowly. They're civilian aircraft, drones, news choppers, even hot air balloons. They're all coming to watch. Muko stared at the data. They're treating this like a festival. There's tailgating, Zix asked, confused. According to human culture, the AI replied, tailgating involves grilling food in parking lots before major events, often with alcohol. They're throwing a party, Muko said, sounding genuinely impressed. On the surface, people had gathered in massive numbers. Some held signs. Welcome to Earth, we'll trade sister for alien tech and alien spicy angels. Others wore costumes, including several full-body inflatable dinosaurs. The team descended the ramp in their most formal diplomatic attire, rehearsed speeches at the ready, cameras flashed, cheers erupted, and then an inflatable T-Rex charged toward them. Welcome to Earth, the costumed humans shouted, flailing their arms. "We have dogs and pizza. Also, we will try to pet you." Security swept in, gently escorting the enthusiastic welcomer away. But not before the human tossed a plush alien doll toward Zix with a sign reading "Awoo." Zix stared at the toy in stunned silence. Is this normal for humans?" the AI responded. Surprisingly, yes. The formal portion of the welcome began on representatives giving speeches, children waving flags, the whole spectacle. But there was an undeniable undercurrent of chaos, excitement, and humor. Muko leaned toward Critic. "I think I get it now." "Get what?" Crit asked. "They're not afraid of the unknown. They're excited by it. They embrace it, laugh at it, make t-shirts about it." Zix looked around the crowd, people from every walk of life, every background, all here, not with fear or anger, but with smiles and curiosity. "They're not just reacting," he said slowly. "They're celebrating." Critic's bioluminescent patches blinked in agreement, and turning us into content. As the reception began, complete with buffet tables and photo booths, Muko watched a group of humans dancing near the DJ. "So," she said, tentacles twitching. "This is First Contact," Zix nodded. "Welcome to Earth." The party that followed the official First Contact ceremony wasn't in any diplomatic handbook. At first, the Alexian team tried to maintain a professional demeanor. They stood beside long buffet tables beneath a white event tent set up in what the humans called a safe observation zone, though judging by the sheer number of people milling about with cameras, signs, and questionable costumes, the word safe was being used loosely. "Doctor." Zixtel kept his arms folded tightly behind his back, his mandibles stiff. "This is unconventional." "No arguments here," Muko replied, eyeing a human child offering her a small, glitter-covered cupcake shaped like their ship. Critic, meanwhile, was already on her third cup of something called coffee. Her bioluminescent patches had begun to strobe erratically. "Do you think it's safe?" Zix asked, watching as she took a fourth sip and began explaining temporal folding to a nearby human physicist using only enthusiastic hand gestures and finger guns. "Absolutely not," Muko said. "But I want to see what happens." Despite the chaos, or maybe because of it, the First Contact team found themselves gradually pulled into the celebration. Someone queued up a song called the Che-Che Slide, and before Zix could object, he was awkwardly shuffling alongside a row of humans who were cheering him on like he was a celebrity. Across the lawn, Critic was attempting to demonstrate basic quantum theory using empty plastic cups and napkins. A small crowd had gathered, filming everything and shouting encouragement. One of the humans offered her a party streamer, which she immediately turned into a visual aid for string theory. By the time the sun began to set, the entire gathering had blurred into a strange hybrid of science fair, block party, and interspecies cultural exchange. Zix finally sat down on a folding chair someone had pulled up for him. He had a plate in one hand, a slice of something called pizza, dripping with cheese and strange cylindrical meats. It wasn't bad. A human scientist plopped down next to him with a wide grin. "So, what do you think of Earth so far?" Zix hesitated. "It's not what we expected," the scientist laughed. "You mean you thought we'd be freaked out, rioting in the streets? Full-on alien panic?" "Yes," Zix admitted. "Most civilizations experience severe social disruption after First Contact. Religion, fractures. National alliances, collapse. There's usually widespread fear." "Oh, we've got all that," the human said cheerfully. "We're just processing it through memes and party playlists. That's how we deal." Zix raised one brow. "By celebrating, sure," the scientist shrugged. "Life's already hard enough. If aliens show up, might as well throw a party." Critic joined them a moment later, still flushed from caffeine. "This is the greatest day of my life," she declared, holding a small t-shirt that read, "Aliens need Space Java 2. Muko approached, carrying a plate stacked precariously high with miniature desserts. "You know what's strange?" "What?" Zix asked. "They're not trying to impress us or intimidate us. or even really analyze us. The group paused as nearby humans began a spontaneous dance-off. One of them was wearing a full-body squid suit with a sign that read, "Tentacle Buddies Welcome." "They're trying to befriend us," Moko finished. The realization hit like a gravitational pulse. Every prior contact attempt the Alexians had studied involved either caution or conquest. Civilizations leaned toward wariness, paranoia, or diplomacy wrapped in suspicion. Humanity had, in contrast, immediately gone for memes, t-shirts, and dance music. "I think," Critic said slowly, "this is their survival trait." Zix frowned. "What is?" "This." She gestured at the chaotic scene around them, their joy, their absurdity, their refusal to take the universe seriously. "You think it's a weapon?" Moko asked, dubious. "In a way, yes," Critic replied. "Because it disarms you. You expect resistance, and they throw you a welcome party. You try to scare them, and they offer you snacks. They absorb shock with celebration." Zix leaned back in his chair, watching as two humans tried to teach a Proxim dignitary the Macarena. "Maybe it's not a weapon," he said. "Maybe it's armor." Later that night, the team regrouped aboard the ship. The diplomatic reception had officially ended, but the humans were still partying outside. Music and laughter echoed across the landing zone. Moko sat at the central console uploading cultural data to the Coalition. "They call it joy in the face of chaos," she said. "There's a phrase they use a lot. If we're going down dancing." Critic, still caffeinated beyond reason, had taken over the holo display to present her findings. "Observe," she said, pulling up footage from the party. "This is me explaining quantum string tension using party decorations." The human in the background offered me a churro and asked if I believed in destiny. This was immediately followed by a group chant of Earth, 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 led by someone in a cow costume. Zix massaged his temples again. This is what happens when the galactic scientific community ignores warning signs because they're curious. And you know what? Critic grinned. "I think we needed this." Zix raised an eyebrow. "They're messy, loud, utterly unfiltered, but they're also creative in ways we haven't seen. And most importantly, they want to connect." Moko nodded. "They're not sleeping giants. They're wide awake. Just focused inward until now." Zix looked out the viewing window at the blue planet below. "Maybe that's what all those old warnings meant," he murmured. "They were just dangerous when provoked," Moko added. "They were dangerous because they didn't know how dangerous they were. And now?" Critic asked. Zix took a deep breath. "Now they're starting to figure it out, and they're laughing all the way into the stars." Critic yawned, finally feeling the coffee crash hit. "So, what's the plan?" Zix stood slowly, all forearms stretching. "We do what we came here to do: observe, learn, report." "And party?" Moko asked, eyes hopeful. Zix sighed. "Yes. And apparently, party." As they powered down for the night, they received one final transmission from the surface. It was a short video clip, a group of humans raising their drinks to the sky, chanting in sync to the aliens. "May your snacks be strange and your playlists be intergalactic." There was a beat of silence before the AI translated. "It's a toast, a form of ritualized bonding." Zix smiled faintly. "Well, that's one way to start a diplomatic relationship." It started with coffee. Of all the things the first contact team expected to trigger a cultural shift, caffeine wasn't on the list. But then again, very little about Earth had followed their predictions. The diplomatic reception had stretched late into the evening. Guests drifted between tasting tables, cultural exhibits, and spontaneous human-initiated dance circles. Music played. Conversations blurred across languages, with translator apps doing their best to keep up. And in the middle of it all, researcher Critic stood at a beverage station, holding a paper cup of something steaming. "This smells potent," she said, her bioluminescent patches fluttering with interest. A nearby human grinned. "That's our coffee. You're gonna love it. Just, maybe don't drink too much too fast." Critic ignored the warning. Minutes later, she was glowing like a solar flare and trying to explain quantum mechanics to a cluster of human scientists using interpretive dance and party streamers. "Is she okay?" Zixtal asked, cautiously observing the scene from a few feet away. Muko, holding her own sample of the strange dark liquid, shrugged. "She seems fine, extremely alert. Maybe too alert." By her fourth cup, Critic had crafted a new hypothesis on quantum consciousness. 2 humans were taking notes, and someone had already clipped a video of her and posted it on something called TikTok. Within 20 minutes, it had 300,000 views. That was when things truly began to spiral. Critic's new fame as the dancing alien scientist took off like a meteor. Humans were fascinated. Videos of her dramatic demonstrations were stitched, remixed and paired with everything from techno soundtracks to classical orchestras. The hashtags exploded. Alien vibes, Space Java, Quantum Queen. And Critic loved every second of it. "I have followers now." She beamed the next morning, her eye ridges still twitching slightly from the residual caffeine. "Millions, across multiple platforms," Zix sighed deeply. "You've been here one day. How is that even possible?" "It's the algorithm," a human teenager nearby explained helpfully. "We love 2 things, science and chaos. She gives us both." It didn't stop there. Critic's newfound fame sparked a tidal wave of creativity among humans. Fan art, memes, parody accounts had all surfaced within hours. Someone even launched a line of plushies based on her likeness. Another group printed t-shirts with the slogan "Mood before space coffee." The council back home was not amused. "Why are we receiving dozens of human meme formats per day?" One stern message read, "This is not a sanctioned form of scientific exchange." But the damage, or rather, the magic was done. Critic's TikTok channel had gone fully viral. Moko was approached to host a cooking segment about alien cuisine. Zix was asked to collab on a video debunking black hole myths. And through it all, coffee kept flowing. It wasn't just a drink. It was a ritual, a social lubricant, a shared obsession. The team learned that coffee had been the fuel behind many of humanity's greatest and worst ideas. They discovered that entire wars had been strategized under its influence. Novels written in sleepless nights and friendships formed over shared cups. "It's like a neural amplifier," Critic mused during one caffeine-fueled brainstorming session. "Except it makes humans funnier and slightly more reckless." Moko raised a tentacle. "You're on your 6th cup. Don't judge me," Critic grinned. "I'm about to invent time travel using espresso and duct tape." Zix, meanwhile, found himself cornered by a human scientist asking, "Have you ever had it with oat milk? It's life-changing." And then came the real twist. Coffee wasn't the only fuel. There was TikTok. As Critic's videos continued to trend, humans began using the platform to send the team questions, greetings, jokes, and more surprisingly, collaborative challenges. One day it was dance duets, the next, science trivia, then fan theories about interstellar wormholes being portals to snack dimensions. At first, Zix resisted. "This is not the mission," he grumbled. "We came to establish diplomatic protocols, not become entertainers." But the more he resisted, the more the humans leaned in. Someone made an edit of Zix's grumpy face paired with the phrase "when the alien just wants peace talks, but Earth gives him memes." It went viral overnight. Eventually, even Zix relented. He appeared in a video explaining gravitational lensing using Gel-O and a magnifying glass. It was educational. It was absurd. It got 5 million likes. That was the moment the Alexian team realized something important. Humanity wasn't just consuming their knowledge, they were remixing it, blending it, and turning it into cultural exchange. Science, jokes, food, dance, storytelling, it was all part of the same chaotic equation. And humans thrived in chaos. "They're not content to simply receive knowledge," Muko observed. "They want to experience it, personalize it, make it funny, and then share it with the entire planet." "Are we okay with this?" Zix asked. watching a group of children perform a dance based on critics' interpretation of string theory. "No," Muko said, "but I kind of love it." By the end of their first week, the ship's internal systems had logged over 7,000 Earth-based digital mentions of their crew. Critics' channel had crossed 20 million followers and expanded to include cooking experiments, reaction videos, and a segment called Explain That Thing, where she tried to describe complex science topics in under 30 seconds using whatever items were nearby. A banana, a chair, and a balloon had once been her tools to explain dark matter. It actually made sense. Back on the ship, Zix began to draft a preliminary report to the Council of Sciences. He typed slowly, choosing his words carefully. Preliminary assessment. Humanity appears to respond to first contact with humor, curiosity, and enthusiasm bordering on mania. Caffeine is heavily involved. So is a platform called TikTok. He paused, glanced at the latest notification on the console. A TikTok tagged Space Squad challenge inviting aliens to duet a new dance trend based on satellite orbits. He sighed and added, secondary note. Resistance is futile. They've already edited me into a boy band poster. At that moment, Muko poked her head into the room. You need to see this, she said. Critic had just released a video explaining wormhole stability while dressed in a cape, riding a scooter, and drinking a caramel latte. She ended it with a backflip attempt, which failed. A thumbs up and a shout of "Stay curious, Earthlings." The comments were overwhelmingly positive. One read, "I never liked physics in school, but now I wanna be an astrophysicist. Also, please let Critic adopt me." Zix smiled in spite of himself. "They're unpredictable," he said, and very loud. "But they're listening," Muko replied. "That's more than most civilizations ever do." Critic walked in moments later with a fresh cup of coffee and a giant grin. "So," she asked, "who wants to help me film a duet explaining quantum entanglement with glow sticks?" Zix didn't even try to resist. The warnings hadn't lied. Not exactly. Nodding. When the Alexian team first stumbled upon the ancient messages etched into asteroids, buried on Martian ruins, and embedded in forgotten alien databases, the message was consistent. Do not disturb Earth. Leave the third planet alone. Don't wake them up. The assumption had always been that the warnings were about danger, about war, about primitive hostility. But after 2 months of living among humans, Zixtal had come to a much different conclusion. The humans weren't dangerous in the way those civilizations had feared. They weren't conquerors. They weren't destroyers. They weren't interested in galactic domination. They were just unstoppable. It began subtly, right after the first contact celebrations. The humans didn't waste time. Within weeks, they had invited the Alexians to participate in joint technology exchanges, cultural collaborations, and even a friendly coding competition between Earth's best programmers and the ship's AI. Someone from the human side programmed a functional translator app in 3 days based on audio snippets captured from critics' TikToks and the team's live streams. "Wait," Muko had said, watching the prototype work in real time. "They're not even trained linguists." "Nope," a human replied cheerfully. "Just bored tech kids and open source libraries. Also, we offered them pizza." By the end of the month, there were 15 translation apps available. 3 of them actually worked, and one could identify dialects by background noise alone. That one was developed on a dare. Then came the food trucks. It started with Moko. A small request from a human chef turned into a viral cooking segment. The idea of blending human and alien cuisines exploded. By the second week, someone had outfitted a repurposed bus into Earth's first interplanetary food truck, serving dishes like quantum quesadillas and nebula noodles, with custom sauces that changed flavor depending on body temperature. Critic tried the noodles once. "I think they're alive," she said. "Also delicious." They opened a second truck 3 days later. Then, someone on the internet joked, "What if we started a K-pop group with aliens?" And within 48 hours, a team of producers, choreographers, and translators began auditions for the first human alien pop band. The band's name, Spore 3 Zeroids United. The Z was silent, allegedly. Zix, who had once been the most skeptical of the crew, started taking notes. At first, it was out of obligation, then curiosity, then disbelief. Now, it was fascination. They weren't sleeping, he said one day, staring down at Earth from the ship's observation deck. They were just waiting. Waiting for what? Muko asked, sipping a human beverage that involved milk, caramel, whipped cream, and enough sugar to disrupt molecular bonds. A reason, Zix said simply. A reason to turn outward. Something to push them into motion. And once in motion, humans didn't stop. In less than 6 months, they'd launched joint science initiatives, developed experimental propulsion systems based on things they barely understood, and started solving problems that had stumped older civilizations for centuries. Not because they were smarter, not because they had superior tools, but because, unlike most species, humans didn't seem to believe in the impossible. Wait, you can't teleport food because of quantum uncertainty, a human physicist asked during a joint lab session. Have you tried just ignoring it? Critic had nearly dropped her datapad. You can't just ignore quantum laws, she replied. That's what they said about flying, the human shrugged. And antibiotics. And streaming movies in high def. We did those too. Zix had dismissed the conversation as nonsense. Until 6 months later, the human alien research team teleported a sandwich. It arrived slightly burnt and missing part of the crust, but as the human lead proudly declared, that's just free toasting. We're calling it value-added teleportation. The Alexians stared at them in stunned silence. Humans celebrated with high fives, memes, and a commemorative sticker line featuring the slogan, "Beam me up lunchy." Zix documented it all. He filed official reports, kept recordings, annotated scientific findings, and eventually stopped being surprised. The more time he spent with humans, the more he realized that their real strength wasn't in their science or their technology. It was in their mindset. They never stopped experimenting, never stopped creating. They looked at reality as a suggestion, not a boundary. You know why those warnings were left? Zix asked one day as the crew relaxed in the galley, watching human cooking shows. It wasn't because humans are dangerous. Sure felt like it at first, Muko replied, licking sauce off a tentacle. Zix nodded. They can be dangerous, but so can any species. No, the warnings were because once humans know something is possible, they don't stop until they've done it, or broken it, or turned it into a product. They just needed someone to tell them, "You're not alone," Critic added quietly. And then they exploded. Into memes and food trucks, Muko said. And science breakthroughs, Zix said. And TikTok explainers. And fan-made starship blueprints. And a social media campaign to terraform Mars with seaweed. Oh yeah, Muko said. They're dead serious about that. There's a petition and everything. That night, Zix sat down at his console and began drafting a new warning. Not a threat. Not a condemnation, a guide. To future explorers, the beings of the third planet are awake now. They have coffee, pizza, TikTok, and an unlimited supply of enthusiasm. They will absolutely try to pet you. They will try to feed you. They will definitely create memes about your most sacred traditions. And somehow they will solve problems you thought unsolvable, using methods that shouldn't work. But do. He paused, then added, they're not what we feared. They're what we didn't expect. A force of joy and chaos, of curiosity and caffeine. And they're just getting started. He tapped in one final line. Yes, they still put pineapple on pizza. No, they're not going to stop. We tried. By the end of their first Earth year, the change was impossible to deny. The galaxy was different now. Louder. Stranger. And somehow better. When the Alexian First Contact Team had set foot, or in Muko's case, tentacles on Earth, they'd been scientists, observers, diplomats. Their mission had been clear. Establish peaceful relations, collect data, and assess whether the ancient warnings about humans had any merit. But the moment Earth had responded with memes, parties, and a welcome sign that read, We have pizza and dogs. The team had unknowingly stepped into the heart of a cultural supernova. And now, that blast wave was rippling across the stars. In the months that followed the initial landing, humanity didn't just adapt to the galactic community, they transformed it. The Alexians had seen civilizations rise and fall over thousands of cycles, but they'd never seen anything quite like this. "They're not integrating into the galaxy," critics said one morning, her bioluminescent patches flashing faintly over her third cup of coffee. "They're assimilating us." Zixtel glanced up from his report console. "That's not the word you want." "No," Muko said thoughtfully. "Actually, I think it is. It wasn't about conquest. There were no fleets, no colonization plans, no military expansions. Humanity's weapons were far more subversive humor, collaboration, creativity, and relentless energy. Within weeks of first contact, Earth had launched the Interstellar Memo Exchange program, allowing different species to upload and remix each other's most sacred imagery into viral digital content. Muko's reaction to seeing her homeworld's most revered spiritual symbol turned into a dancing avocado was somewhere between horror and respect. "They're not mocking it," she'd said, watching it loop. "They just think everything is remixable." And they did. Alien cuisine became fusion comfort food. Galactic formalware was rebranded as space streetwear. Even the Universal Translator got an unofficial update after a human coder programmed it to recognize sarcasm, emojis, and TikTok slang. "This version can detect passive aggression in 7 languages," the programmer explained during a live stream, including Hmong guilt. Humanity's ability to absorb, adapt, and reinvent wasn't limited to pop culture. They approached science the same way. One moment, Zix had been explaining the laws of physics to a room full of Earth scientists. The next, they were brainstorming ways to bend those laws over a bowl of ramen. Critics' coffee-fueled TikTok explaining quantum entanglement with cat memes and a classical dubstep remix soundtrack had reached 3 spiral arms. It was translated into 46 alien dialects and used in 6 different educational systems. One school even choreographed a dance routine to go with it. The galaxy hadn't just noticed humanity, it had embraced them. "Well," Zix muttered during a science symposium-turned-dance party, "the ancient warnings weren't wrong." Muko, now the proud owner of a multi-world restaurant chain specializing in quantum comfort food, looked up from plating what appeared to be an edible black hole. "They just didn't understand what they were warning about." "It wasn't danger," Critic added. "It was disruption." Humanity didn't destroy galactic norms. They rearranged them like a child dumping puzzle pieces onto the floor, then deciding the puzzle would be more interesting, upside down, and on fire. And somehow, it worked. During a joint conference on interstellar transportation, a human engineer proposed a method of faster-than-light propulsion based on something called jet dynamics. When pressed for clarification, the engineer held up a mug that read "Math is just spicy philosophy" and played a video of someone launching a chair across a parking lot. The theory shouldn't have worked, but it did. A year later, humanity helped revolutionize galactic transit routes by applying that very principle. It was dubbed quantum impulse fling propulsion. Naturally, the first test flight had been live-streamed and included a musical montage. At the post-conference reception, Zix found himself cornered by a group of curious alien researchers. "Is it true?" one asked, their crystalline membrane trembling with disbelief, "that humans solved the Gallon equation while dancing?" "Sort of," Zix admitted. "They were trying to teach our quantum computer to run a game called Minecraft. The solution came to them at 3 a.m., after 6 energy drinks and a pizza." There was a moment of stunned silence. "That's horrifying," the alien whispered. Zix nodded. "Also effective." At another table, Muko was explaining to a group of dignitaries how her signature dish glow-in-the-dark mac and cheese with molecular shifted texture zones was born out of an accident involving hot sauce in a quantum blender. "The secret?" she said with a wink, expertly garnishing a plate with a stardust reduction. "Don't overthink it. Just make it weird, then see what happens." Weird had become the new normal. Critic's TikTok channel had passed 1 billion followers. She now hosted weekly science shows, half comedy, half brilliance, featuring guest appearances from both humans and aliens. Zix's face was on at least 6 different meme templates, including one where he was labeled Grumpy Galactic Dad. At some point, even the ancient warning sites became part of the cultural phenomenon. Humans turned them into a galaxy-wide scavenger hunt. Each new inscription discovered was posted, shared, and of course, turned into merch. One particularly ominous message found on a distant asteroid simply read, "Look, we tried to tell you." It became a trending catchphrase. "I heard there's a reality show in production," Moko said one day, handing Zix a steaming mug of something called Nitro Moon Brew. "About what?" Zix asked. "About humans tracking down all the old warnings," she replied. "They're calling it Oops, We Woke Them." Zix buried his face in his hands. Of course they are. Still, beneath the chaos, the galaxy was changing in ways no one had expected. Species that had never collaborated before were now exchanging culinary secrets. Rigid academic conferences were becoming hubs of interdisciplinary innovation. Diplomacy included game nights. Galactic councils started using emojis in their official communication. And new species ones that had long kept to themselves were slowly emerging, curious about the chaos they'd watched from afar. Curious about Earth. About humans. "I think we've started something," critics said one night as the team sat aboard their ship, orbiting a glowing trade station where neon signs in 20 languages advertised everything from space ramen to zero-gravity karaoke. "You think," Zix replied, sipping from a cup that said "World's Okayest Sinologist." "I mean it," she continued. "This isn't just a phase. This is evolution. Cultural, scientific to diplomatic, whatever you want to call it." "They've shifted the center of gravity," Moko said, "without trying to take it. And we let them," Zix added, "because they didn't demand it. They danced into it." He stood slowly and looked out the viewport, where Earth now shone among the stars, no longer just the third rock from a backwater system, but the epicenter of a new kind of galactic energy. "They weren't a threat," he said. "They were an invitation." 5 years after landing on Earth, the Alexian First Contact Team submitted their final report to the Galactic Council of Sciences. It was 37 pages long, but the first sentence said everything. The ancient warnings were correct, and also completely wrong. Zixtal, now promoted to ambassador-at-large for cross-cultural relations, had agonized over that opening line for weeks. But no other phrase seemed to capture what humanity truly was. A walking contradiction wrapped in joy, chaos, caffeine, and good intentions. He remembered their arrival like it was yesterday, the awkward descent, the inflatable T-Rex greeting them, the immediate offers of snacks and Spotify playlists. He hadn't understood it then. None of them had. But now, after years immersed in human culture, attending everything from science conferences to backyard barbecues, he saw it for what it was, the most enthusiastic interstellar welcome in recorded history. And they hadn't stopped since. Critic had become a full-blown influencer. Her TikTok account had not only reached 1 billion followers, it had expanded into a media empire. She had her own line of educational toys, an animated series explaining particle physics to toddlers, and was scheduled to host the next Galactic Science Olympics alongside a robot named Doe. Moko was a culinary celebrity. Her flagship restaurant, Quantum Comfort, now had 8 locations across 4 star systems. Her signature dish, mac and cheese made with shape-shifting starches and emotion-responsive seasoning, had just earned a Michelin Meteor, the galaxy's highest culinary honor. And Zix? Well, he wrote a book, How to Train Your Human. Spoiler, they'll train you instead. Hit the galactic bestseller list within a week. A follow-up edition, subtitled It's Fine, Everything's on Fire, but We're Dancing Anyway, was already in the works. But accolades weren't what stuck with him most. It was the ripple effect. After humans entered the galactic community, everything changed. Trade routes restructured to accommodate Earth's erratic supply chains, mostly because no one could keep up with how often humans changed snack trends. Diplomacy protocols were updated to include karaoke night and informal meme exchanges. Galactic science forums now had vibe check sections and live music. Entire species that had been isolated for centuries started poking their heads out, not because they felt safe, but because they were curious about the species bold enough to mix radioactive chemicals into dessert just to see what would happen. They cracked open the galaxy, Muko had said once, stirring a neon sauce that pulsed faintly with molecular instability. They didn't just join it, they made it theirs. And it wasn't just culture. It was problem-solving. Earth scientists, backed by their usual mix of determination, absurdity, and total disregard for established rules, started fixing things. They redesigned planetary recycling systems using technology salvaged from old arcade machines. They solved centuries-old mathematical proofs by turning them into puzzles and posting them on Reddit. They teleported a sandwich. That last one was still controversial. Some argued the sandwich wasn't technically edible after it arrived. Others insisted the toasted edges were just a bonus. More importantly, humans refused to let go of the fun. They threw parties for every breakthrough. They made fan edits of diplomatic meetings. They sang in elevators, danced in lab coats, and turned interstellar transport hubs into pop-up art galleries. And they made it all look easy. They don't realize they're rewriting the rules, Critic had once said during an interview. They just do it because someone said it might be possible, or someone else said it wasn't. That was what the ancient warnings had failed to predict. Not war, not destruction, but movement, change, unstoppable curiosity. Once humans knew they weren't alone, they treated the galaxy not as something to fear, but as a playground, a classroom, a dance floor. A place to meet new friends, try weird food, and maybe solve a physics problem with glitter and duct tape. They're not a sleeping giant, Zix wrote in the final report. They're a caffeinated toddler with a physics degree and zero respect for boundaries, but infinite love for the unknown. He paused, then added, and somehow it works. Their findings were echoed by other contact teams. The Proxim delegates now hosted monthly memo swaps. The crystalline Yuvantar species, once considered reclusive and rigid, now had a competitive reality show called So You Think You Can Breakdance, Galactic Edition. The episode where a Betelgeusian attempted a headspin had gone viral. So had the recovery video. And new visitors were still arriving. At the latest science conference, Zix had watched it all unfold again. A nervous alien team arriving for their first meeting with the galactic community, visibly overwhelmed. And as always, the humans were already there with welcome bags full of snacks, awkward jokes, custom t-shirts, and absolutely no chill. We should warn them, Muko whispered as the newcomers were swept into an impromptu conga line. About what? Critic asked, sipping a suspiciously glowing energy drink. The memes, the dancing, the existential whiplash, all of the above, Muko said with a fond sigh. But even they knew it was too late. It always was, because once humans entered your life, your culture, your science, your space station, they changed it. Not through conquest or coercion, but through relentless inclusion. They'd pet your species, name your appliances, put googly eyes on your spacecraft, and somehow solve your biggest scientific dilemma while making a playlist about it. That was the paradox. They were chaos. And they were kindness. They were brilliant and completely ridiculous. They were frustratingly unpredictable and utterly unforgettable. They're the glitch in the simulation, Zix once told a group of new delegates. And sometimes, the patch too. Back on their ship that evening, Critic was editing another video for her series, Alien Science Explained Through Interpretive Dance. This one featured a flamenco number about gravity wells. Muko was experimenting with a new dessert that involved anti-gravity foam and a flavor profile based on emotional memories. Zix stood at the viewport, staring out into the stars. The galaxy hadn't just survived humanity's arrival. It had come alive. They weren't what we feared, he whispered. They were what we needed. He hit send on the final report. Final transmission, first contact team regarding the ancient warnings about Earth. After 5 years of close observation and full immersion, we conclude that every prior warning was both accurate and completely misunderstood. Humanity is not a threat in the traditional sense. They are not conquerors. They are a force of chaotic good. They will absolutely overwhelm your systems with memes. They will name your most sacred technology something like Kevin. They will ask if you have dogs, and then try to pet you. They will make mistakes. Many, often, loudly. But they will learn from them together, while live streaming. And they will remind you that the universe is not just something to study. It's something to enjoy. Zick smiled and added the last line by hand. We're going to need more coffee. A lot more coffee.